Well, welcome everyone to this week's edition of System Override. What a week it has been. We not only for us personally at League, we have launched a product into the universe and got amazing feedback and results. I'm sure we will talk lots about that as we go through it today because it intertwines with some of our stories. But in addition to that, we have a guest. So, Abby, welcome to the show.
Great to
Thanks.
have
Thanks a
you.
lot. I'm glad to hear.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm an executive consultant. I'm originally from Italy. I live in Brazil. I'm an executive consultant. A few years back, after 15 years as a senior manager, I decided to open my own consultancy. I work with executives dealing with management issues, strategy, challenges. My expertise is in professional development. I also research that. Specifically, I research how chaos affect the professional development of executives. And yeah, I'm enjoying having interesting conversations such as the one that we're going to have now.
You're gonna have so much intel on today. I feel like everything's in chaos, Abby. Like, why don't you just hang out with us all the time too? Like, there's chaos everywhere.
I mean, I'm happy to hang out all the time, but yeah, that's also the trick. Everything is always chaos, so it's always relevant.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Pick a topic that's always in flight. You're never
100%.
out of business.
More and more, increasingly more relevant.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've all been shifted into a complete no, I don't think we've always had there's certain elements of your day or life that are in chaos, but like this year it feels like everything has shifted into chaos.
100%.
Are
But do
you
you
100%.
think it's
seeing
really
that? Are you seeing
yeah,
it have a different effect now that it's not like just at work or
like the
just
world around you feels
yeah.
chaotic?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that we've always been living and working in some level of chaotic conditions. But I think that now systemic chaos just affects us much more in, our daily lives.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if it's war or a pandemic or whatever, or the markets, we just feel it much more. And
Mhm.
and that's why I think that this is also the root cause of a few of the stories that we're going to discuss today, by the way. And I'm not saying
Excellent.
this to fit my theories.
No, we wanna hear your
No,
theories.
we do want to.
I'll
Love that. Yeah. That's so great. Okay, well then let's start talking about a few things. So, first of all, last week, so one of the things that we do as a tradition on the show is we always give a big action at the end of a show, and then the next week we just talk about that action. And so last week, our big action was get people to go and do something that they love to do but haven't done for a while. And so, I said last week that one of the things I was going to do was go and walk along. I live close to a river and I don't get enough time at that river. So I did that. And it is so beautiful, very high, very scary. I still think it's going to flood,
Sugar is high. It is really high.
but it was really great. It was great. Bree, what did you do?
I spent because I've been having really busy weeks, and when you're getting a little bit too like wired and fried a little, and so I knew I just needed to touch grass and be outside, and so I
Hmm.
did that pretty much all weekend. I pretty much lived outside in my yard. I did a lot of gardening, which made me very happy, and I also convinced my husband to we should start rearranging our deck, and we like to demo some really. He loves when the weekend starts with that. Hey, you know what's a great idea that we should do today? We should do some work. And we did that, but it looks great. And so, yeah, it was awesome. And it was exactly the kind of reset I need. And you should always just make sure that you're watching your inner system so that you can
Yeah.
calibrate when you need it.
Yeah, that's actually and as a great CEO, Bree sent a note to the entire group of us on Friday to remind all of us to go and find some time to recharge by doing something that you love to do. Abby, how about you? Anything you've done recently that you love to do but maybe don't do all the time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think so. I think that the one thing that I really would like to do is to just get lost in a new place. I just love doing that. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't need a flight. It can be also in
Mhm.
your hometown. There are always some corners that you've never explored. And I could do that here, but I think that I just fell into routine and didn't make time for
Hmm.
that. Yeah, that's a good idea. I will do it
I
next
love
week.
Yeah.
that. I feel like people don't enjoy enough like, you get so much joy out of holidays, but it's I feel like a lot of it's more that discovery. Like, you could probably still get some of that joy on a regular basis at home by going to a new neighborhood. Like, nobody just parks their car or walks somewhere and just wanders around aimlessly, you know what I mean? We're always going from point A to point B in our own city, so I love that idea. I think
That
that's
is a really good idea.
'cause it's like
Yeah,
there's so many places where you're like, "Oh, this was so fun. I found a new restaurant," or like,
Right.
"I bought something cool." Like, it's all the same stuff you'd be doing on a holiday, but, like, you could have that more often, you know?
I think that that's the best part. Like you get lost, you get scared at the beginning,
Yeah.
but then you just keep going, and then you find that beautiful corner that you didn't expect. It doesn't matter if it's a nice restaurant or a nice landscape or whatever. It's that well,
Mhm.
it was worth it. Not
Yeah,
that
it
bad
was
at all.
I think you're an adventurer. From what I'm learning about you just in this, like, little bit, I feel like you are
Yeah,
an adventurer.
maybe.
Yeah. Well, it takes a lot of your tolerance to risk and to be able to kind of go and move and I've done it several times in my life too, and it does take a certain amount of adventure to be
Yeah.
excited and relocate.
I mean, I think that for some people that have a lot of confidence in themselves, they would just
Hmm.
say, "I'm resourceful. It's gonna be okay. I
Hmm.
will learn language. I will make new
Yeah.
friends, etc., etc." I'm not sure that I'm 100% like that.
Hmm.
I think more like, yeah, whatever. What's the worst that can happen?
Right.
Like,
That's sort of my approach always too. Yeah. But I so admire people who move countries. Like I've always stayed in Canada and moved across Canada several times, but when you move to an entirely
Mhm.
different country where they speak a different language, the law is different, like
Mhm.
the rules, like even like how you heat your home. Like, I was on a different call with somebody before this and then she's like, "Well, lots of people move to Canada that have never had a furnace." And I'm like, "Interesting. I've never lived anywhere where you didn't need a furnace."
Or, like, plug your car in the winter so that it
But
doesn't die,
yeah.
you know? Like, all these weird things you would never think you have to do.
Yeah, when you grow up in a cold country, that's what happens.
yeah, yeah, that's very
Yeah,
interesting.
and you have to
Y
learn that. Like, how do you find out how to do that stuff?
I think it just, like, you go to start your car and you can't try that today, you're like, "Oh, crap, I learned."
That is a good point. But if you didn't know that, you'd be like, well, you'd call like the mechanic or the tow truck driver, and they'd be like, "Oh, if you just plug it in, it's fine."
Yeah.
We had electric cars before there was electric cars were cool. Okay, let's get started. Super excited. Our good friend Mark Zuckerberg makes the headline today on our first story. So Meta has been in many of our conversations, mostly because he's probably the biggest tech company that has gone back and forth on this AI thing. And out of all of the big leaders that, are known globally. And this time, so if we all remember, it doesn't even feel like it's been a month, but it was like just over 6 weeks ago or so that he announced that he was letting go of 8,000 employees, which is a small percentage in a meta world, but it is
Significant
it was
number.
they were doing that in order to fund all of their AI, and this was the way they were going to go with AI and sort of like that. And remember, he was like giving people like multi-million-dollar contracts to come over and work for him. And now he's put into a memo out to his team that maybe they made a mistake and they over indexed on their really AI strategy and what they were going to get out of it. And
Mhm.
so now people are kind of bouncing back and forth. And I'm curious, like Bree, what did you think about this story
I
today?
think, like, when this first story came out about it, I felt like it's not surprising, and I think that's what we said. It's just there's been a lot of, gut reaction, I think, to, like, what this can be, and, like, certainly seeing it from more that, you know, not to paint him with a brush, but like the tech bro kind of like angle of leadership style, just very just like, yep, done, and not really considering the deeper impacts, the kind of more nuance around it, or like the macro implications of that. I think the positive things I take out of this is that there was a very short period of time when
Hmm.
this like he corrected. So I think from like anyone who's worried about it, it's like it doesn't work, and you find out real quick that it doesn't work. So don't worry about that. That's gonna turn around. And then I think the other thing that I will commend him on though is admitting the mistake. So I think
Hmm.
I do love like the one thing that I do love about leaders is when you are bold and brave and you are, willing to test and try new things as they come out. And so was it necessarily the right strategy? No, but what I will commend is like maybe understanding that they're leading an example and communicating in real time their learnings and saying that was maybe the not the right way to go. I shouldn't have done it that way. And we
Mhm.
learned and we're iterating on that quickly because I think with AI in general, not necessarily mistakes, but there's a need to do that as you're getting into it. That fast fail cycle. And I think when we look at large companies and large corporates, like they're not good at that. They're not strong at being able to pivot quickly. And companies are going to need to, like, AI is going to enable a lot, but it's also going to enable you to move in a more faster, more malleable way. And so I think there's a lot of behavior signals being modeled out of these conversations. That said, if you don't know that, I don't know how the general public will look at that. You know what I mean? Because they're not looking at it from the lens that I'm looking at it in that way. And so do you see this as like, yeah, down with AI? See, told you it wouldn't work? Because that's not the narrative we want to come out of that either. It's like there's absolutely a very compelling opportunity for us if we can bridge those gaps. And how the media spins things, which I'm curious if that's some of Abby's like pre-dripping of why we all feel so activated. Is there's just like a big media presence of the spin of things or the way the news is going? But that was kind of my take. So not surprised. Positive, I think, from the future of work that we certainly align on in the sense of it's a joint human enabled, like you can't just like wipe out mass amounts of people in order to make this happen. 3, commend that there's like building out loud and that there's an example being shown. But 4, a little hesitant around how people will take that, if they will take it in the positive way that should be used to enable themselves and see the learnings, or if they'll just take it as validation of the opinion that they want to have on AI. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Avi, how about you? What did you think about this article?
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting because I agree with Bree that the fact that Zuckerberg admits his mistake, it's impressive. I don't know if it's impressive, but it's a good sign. Meaning he's not
Mhm.
saying, yeah, whatever. No, I made a mistake. He also said we might make many more mistakes, which I don't know if it makes it even more sincere or if it's already saying, just so you know, there's going to be another layoff next year. There's going to be another mistake. What can I do?
This
But
might not work either.
at least talking about accountability, he's trying to be accountable. I'm
Yeah.
always annoyed by the fact that at the end of the day, when big tech CEOs have to admit this kind of mistake, they can never say, everyone was asking me, what about AI? What are you going to do about the AI? Why isn't this your next step? And those same people probably are, uh, you know, partners in the blame.
Mhm.
They are
Mhm.
to blame as well, but they will never come out and say, yeah, actually, Zuckerberg was the frontman, but we are
Yeah.
behind him and we pressured him to do that. So I
Yeah.
think that's a culture that is just non-existent, and we should consider that. Maybe the only example that we had was with those 48 hours when the OpenAI board fired Sam Altman, and then
Right.
all the team said, okay, if he goes, we go as well. So the board said, okay, we made a mistake, just stay. But that takes the team to step
Mhm.
up. And I actually think the big story here is about the team. I mean, those
Mhm.
very same people that have a lot of empathy towards that got fired, and maybe now
Mhm.
they're getting rehired, but
Right.
they're going through a very annoying and stressful uh, cycle. What's happening to them is not weird anymore. 10
Yeah.
years ago, it was weird. In the previous
Yeah.
generation, we had 2 events like this in a decade. In the
Mhm.
last
Right.
decade, it literally happens every year, right?
Mhm.
We have
Yes.
2020 pandemic, everyone out. 2021 coming back.
Mhm.
2022 market going bust, everyone out, etc., etc., etc. As employees have to suffer this, they can't just stop and blame the CEO. And again, I'm saying this with empathy. I'm not saying don't feel, don't don't play the victim card. You're also a victim. You also should take responsibility. This happens everywhere. It
Mhm.
happens all the time. Let's see how you can nurture a better network, nurture better skills, strategize for these chaotic times because that's how it works right now. Maybe it's going to become more stable in 10 years from today, but right now, that's the norm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you. So as you like, this is what you've built your business around is working and consulting executives in chaos.
Yeah.
So what kind of techniques do you give to leaders that when they are dealing with stuff like this, particularly like chronic? Because Mark has made several different decisions over, say, the last 18 months where he kind of didn't believe in AI and then he didn't, and then or the impact, and then he was like falling behind. And so I'm guessing that Meta is kind of in a constant state of chaos. What would you say to him if you got to give him advice?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I don't know if my answer is good enough for Zuckerberg, but he's not a client, so who cares?
Yeah, there's might be some good advice for you.
Yeah, maybe. Why not? Happy to have a chat. So I think that the problem here is that there's still an assumption that businesses should be managed in a linear way, meaning
Mm,
Zuckerberg should know what's the best thing to do at any point in time. He should have a plan. The plan should be long term and it should be 100% accurate and effective.
mhm,
That never happened to anyone in any position from the time, bootstrapped shop in high street to big tech. Plans never work out, and now they're not gonna work out more often because of the chaotic system we're working in. So the only thing that the executive can do is to be transparent about their own hypothesis. I mean,
Hmm.
he could have said, maybe there's this new thing, it's called AI, is changing the markets. We are a part of the market.
mhm,
The only thing that you can do is to experiment with big, bold strategies and see how it pans out. Maybe this is going to be a deal changer for all of us. Maybe this is going to lead us to our next stage. Maybe this is going to be a disaster. Maybe we're going to suffer
Hmm.
from it. You're going to be laid off, and I'm already apologizing for that. So I know that that's not regular CEO speak, but that's exactly the problem. I mean,
Yeah,
and
but it
yeah, I
should
assume
be.
that you I don't want to assume, but I wonder if you're familiar with with that kind of experience. At the end of the day, you want to show that you're confident, but you're never confident. Like as a CEO, I'm not talking about you specifically. Uh, so why not just being transparent about what you're sure about, what is an hypothesis, explore the risk with your team, and just have that kind of conversation? Because the opposite, just showing that you're sure that that's the new strategy and we're going to be successful and this is going to be amazing, at the end of the day it just backfires.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love that, I love those lenses too, like, so much. I also love that you called out, like the behind the CEO kind of decision making and pressures and like where funding comes from because it's very real. And so like, a lot of the time you hear the front line kind of like, why are we doing this? Why are we this? And they're looking at, the leaders of the organization being like, why? And the leaders can't actively say exactly to your point, like why? And it's like, I think what people don't realize is like when you're at the top, they think that like you have all the decision making power when really when you're at the top, you just get a whole new level set of bosses that nobody realizes exist otherwise. And it's just like like it's never like a black and white or a good decision. It's like I have 12 grades of or shades of gray decisions to be made here, and they range from like deeply shitty to like not too shitty, and I just have to figure out what the best one is at any given time. And so I think these people don't realize that nuance. So I love that you called that out because I think that's not a layer that a lot of people are aware of from an executive level, that there is a lot of that going on, and and it's kept very behind doors. So I think to your second part, there is such a veneer around executive leadership. There is such a veneer around how to show up. And it's as someone who has like grown into a CEO role, I think it's been interesting. And I don't know if it falls into like because women maybe naturally gravitate towards more of that genuine kind of like conversation or communication style. It almost feels like you're discounted sometimes unless it comes with deep inner confidence. You know what I mean? So I think it's like unless you can truly find that inner peace or like settlement of the discomfort of the unknown and knowing that you won't have all the answers and like you aren't in control, like as a CEO I found that very like it's been a model for a journey for me to get to that place. And so I found I can keep my voice, but I am people react differently to me different on different parts of that journey because it was coming from a place of confidence or performative working on confidence or non-confidence. You know what I mean? And the message and the way I communicate has not changed, but the way people interact with me just solely because of how I feel inside about myself, my role, my this, that is what has changed it, is what I am observing. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that with the like how you work with people and things of that.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point because let's just point out the ugly side of it, okay? There are people around us that just love that moment where they're sitting in front of you and you're feeling insecure and they can manipulate that, right? They have no interest in that genuine approach. They are waiting for the moment of vulnerability to exploit it. And I don't think that that's the majority of people, but I also
Mhm,
think there are a lot of good people that are just they were taught to behave like that
mhm.
in a business context, and that's just toxic. It doesn't work. It doesn't work in the long term. It might work in a very good way in the short term, but in the long term it doesn't work. So first of all, let's just look at that and not ignore the fact that a CEO or a senior executive in general needs to learn also how to perform when they meet these monsters,
Mhm,
because otherwise the damage is going to be real. Having
Mhm.
said that, I think that it is possible to be very confident about your own uncertainties. Meaning,
mhm,
a person can speak with their team or with their investors and say, "This is the risk that I'm saying. I'm
mhm,
sure that this is a risk. I am sure that there is no one clear answer." In parentheses, I'm also sure that no one here has a clear answer to that crisis, to that problem, to that dilemma. And I have my own hypothesis, and I feel strongly that we should go in that direction.
mhm,
Mhm.
So that level of transparency, that level of it's not even vulnerability. I think that it's what's the name of that athlete that became very popular in the past few months? American athlete that is very confident about the way that she acts. Young, I
What
can't
sport?
remember. I don't know.
What
I'm
sport?
sorry.
You're asking the wrong I'm not a sporty person, Abby, I don't
Yeah,
know.
me neither.
My husband would probably know, I can ask him, but we're going. Yeah.
Anyway, she said, someone interviewed her and she said, the question was, do you think about your answers before you speak?
Mm,
Which was an horrible question. It was like, do you actually think, because you always answer so quickly and so confident? And she was like, just very confident about my my capabilities. It doesn't mean that I'm
Mhm.
right, but I'm confident about my capabilities and I just convey them. So if your question, Bree, is what can executives do in that place, I think that the answer is, first of all, take the time to reflect and articulate what
mhm,
are the reasons that you're saying, what are the pieces that you're uncertain about.
mhm,
Don't try to craft an opinion that
mhm,
feels very confident just because you think that that's going to lead to a better acceptance. Actually try to get to very articulated mapping of your feeling, thoughts, hypothesis, and plan of action, and then just lead a conversation about that. Unless you're
Yeah.
surrounded
I
by
I
manipulative.
love that. I love that layer because I think we talk about this in like just seniority or like experience in the sense of like knowing when you don't know, but knowing when it's appropriate that like why would you know? You know what I mean? Like that's always such a sign of inexperience to me is if someone thinks they have an answer for
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
and then it's just like there's no way in hell. There's no way in hell. Like you have like especially in tech, you see that a lot because everyone's trying to do so much across like so many different roles and so they're like, this, well, this, and it's so absolute. And it's just like, no, the fact that you're acting so absolute about this makes me even more uncomfortable with you because there's no way anyone would know this. And like your experience is like not high enough to even recognize that you shouldn't even have the answer to that, that you're trying to like fake an answer. That makes me extra feel like, and
yeah,
so I
yeah,
think from a leadership lens, that just gets more magnified and like, you know, the pressures of having the kind of external sources who are asking, you know, the CEO those kind of questions. And I'm certainly seeing that in fundraising too, is like people just want such absolute like in the future, like crystal ball reading, like, well, how do you know this? How do you know this? How do you know that? And exactly to your point, I think it's around the confidence and knowing when to call out and say, well, nobody knows that answer you just asked me. Like, if I knew that answer, I wouldn't be doing this. I'd be playing the markets and I'd become a millionaire. Like, why would I be doing this? If I knew that answer.
yeah,
That's like solving the world's problems if I had that answer. Like, wouldn't we all want that? But I think like knowing when it's appropriate to understand or to push back. Like, I think that's the thing is people feel like it's not like a vending machine where they put a question in and you have to spit out gum. Like, You don't have to spit out gum. You can push back on it or respectfully ask and be like, I'm curious why you would think that because of X, Y, and Z. So I love, yeah, how do you coach people through that? How do you like build that skill set?
Yeah, it's a very good question as well, because first of all, I think that some people are wired to it. Maybe they're not skilled, but they're wired to that level of
Hmm.
genuinity. They're searching for it. Maybe they started playing with rules that don't belong to them because of culture. But when you just open their eyes, that's very pretentious of me to say that like that. But when you just, call
Yeah.
them on the fact that they can be themselves, but just learn to do how to behave properly, I think that it's very easy. I think that other people wait for permission,
Hmm.
and they understand at some point that permission will never come from the investors, their team, etc., etc., because they have their own interests. By the way, I'm not
Mhm.
blaming them either. If
No.
I aim, when I used to be a senior manager, and I expected my CEO to give me answers,
Mhm.
I
Hmm.
would be vocal about the level of uncertainty in which I had to work in a polite way, but also in a bit of a blunt way. I'm not supposed to work in this uncertainty. So again, I have empathy for people who had to balance those relationships. I think that the only way to train people to behave in that way is to train, first of all, the articulation muscle. For
Mhm.
some people, that becomes sort of like, I can just I my stream of consciousness can now become my
Right.
communication style. I will just say what I think, and that's how it's gonna work out from now on, which is not a good thing to do.
Mhm.
Not for
Hmm.
a strategic reason. Just as a human, you want to become smarter by articulating your thoughts and putting a period in the end of every phrase. You don't want to have that kind of comma, 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 3 points at when you're talking.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I think that that's actually the muscle that is useful to train. When a person learns that they can articulate their thoughts in statements,
Mhm.
and that requires research, and that requires sometimes more information, that requires more conversations with other people. At some point, they become more confident with their ability to have a conversation about what they think, and they don't
Mm.
search for external opinions to conquer and spit out in the next investor meeting or team meeting,
Right.
Mhm.
etc. Maybe that's the core skill.
Very
I
interesting.
love that.
It
I
kind of
think
reminds me of your reel you released
well, that's what I was
today,
gonna say,
Brie.
like, it is a lot of what we do at League, like, we think a lot about metacognition, and it's just how do we build habits and a tool to evaluate your own thinking, and, like, to create more of that awareness, because that's the one thing we have found in the work that we do is people are very disconnected to themselves, like, we
Hmm.
are very disconnected to ourselves to a point where you even start to ask people what they think about, like, their own self, their own thinking, like, they're just so far away from it, and I think too, like, because we have moved into, like, a very digital like, you know what actually was a part of, like I'm a big in my head person and I'm always like overthinking and thinking all the time. But a big piece that was very blind to me was like the inner connection to self for a long time. And so like for me, I almost found like I needed to connect my physical body to my mental thoughts just so I could tell how things felt because I think we're in this like perform, grind, hardship is good. And so we've kind of turned off that signal from ourselves, I feel like, in the way that we've gone. And
Right.
so my coach actually, Vera, shout out to Vera, excellent
Shout
coach.
out to Vera.
Yes. Excellent coach. She, really helped me. She was like, just when you're thinking these things, just write down how your body is feeling. Just start to actually just like it's almost like two little like neuron connectors that are not connected. Just like bring them closer so you can actually start creating the connection. And
Mhm.
just write it down. And don't think about it. Just like write it down so you can start creating associations. And so I started doing that and then I started to be able to connect that better. But for lack of that, I was having a really hard time really working through some of that for myself until I started that exercise.
That's
That makes a
great.
lot of sense. Maybe
Yeah.
I will push back just on one point
Yeah.
regarding that. I think that we have to make a distinction between journaling and reflection. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that any of this is bad, but I think that journaling became very popular, and that feels like what we're talking about, Brie, but I
Mhm.
don't think it is.
Mhm.
That's still stream of consciousness that helps with awareness. It doesn't help with clarity necessarily. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's the opposite. You fall into that rabbit hole, and
Yeah.
your mind at the end of it, it's just another very messy bundle of thoughts and feelings, etc., etc. You just put everything on paper.
Yeah.
Right.
Reflection is different. You just sit down, and at the end of the day, you want to have a clear statement that,
Mhm.
that describes your insight, your feeling, what if there is an action that you want to take. And
Mhm.
I don't know your coach, but clearly she's
Yeah.
amazing because she invites you to do exactly that. Meaning there is a
Right.
new connection to be made.
Yeah.
Until you don't get to that connection, your head is still messy and you're still disconnected. So
That
keep
is
working
such
Yeah.
on
a
that.
good point to bring out. So why that worked for me is I am really good at my feelings don't come into play in those. Like, I'm really good at staying in an objective headspace, and I can separate feelings. I think that is such a good thing because when you were saying like journaling, I just was thinking like it's the emotions, and you can't think like it's almost like. And so, what we found in communicating league are people like, oh, it's just journaling, it's fluffy feeling stuff. It's like, no, 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 no,
No.
that's not what it is. But I love the distinction you made between clarity of thought versus like getting rid of the feelings. And journaling is a way that you can get rid of feelings because the
Mm.
important thing is you need to get the feelings out of up here and in your body so you can see clearly. Like they need to like go away. You have to find a out piece for them. So I love the way you put that because it's almost like journaling is a preempt to this work of
Mhm.
reflection.
Mhm.
You have to like remove the feelings first so you can be objective. And most people don't do that. So they just stay in their feelings and then feel, if they think about it, they feel very convicted about them and why they're
Right.
right. They're more mad and why they're
Yeah.
I feel like this whole thing with journaling now is like just reliving the chaos every day.
Well, you have to get it out. That's the thing. Like and it's something you say to your kids, right? Like I say that to my 10-year-old all the time. It's just like there's nothing and like when we say like there's nothing wrong with your feelings, but like your actions, it's like that's that exact process. It's like have
Right.
your feelings, that's fine, but what you rationally choose to do about it after the fact, like you need to not act in the feelings. You need to figure out a way to get rid of them constructively before you move into the next phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Screw the stories. I love these topics, Abby. Let's keep going.
I'm happy to. No, happy to.
Okay. No, we're going to the next story.
I don't disagree.
So the next story is pretty cool. This is one that we knew this was coming. There was going to start to see really practical uses for AI inside of SaaS products. So Workday put out their new agent passport so that you can manage your governance around your agents inside of your organization the same way you would humans. And so we're not Workday customers, so I can't say that I've seen the technology work, but the way it is described is that it really does it makes sure then verifies the agents, right? Because we want them to actually work well and be not putting your company at risk. But it also, kind of level sets inside your organization that humans and agents are now part of the company together. And how are we going to coexist and work to the betterment of the company and to the employees? So what did you guys think of this one? Abby, I'll throw it over to you. What did you think of what Workday's done?
Okay. So I'm also not a customer, okay? And I hope that I'm not getting this wrong. But here's the point. AI should help with stuff that humans get wrong often, right? So let's take an industry that is close to me, management consulting or strategic consulting. McKinsey downsized significantly because they understand that AI can do research and analysis better than their junior consultants. That makes a lot
Mm.
of sense, right? So if AI is great at doing stuff that is analytical, prescriptive, pretty much, meaning you tell the agent to do something, it should just replace humans without the need for another AI to check their work. We need managers because the junior analysts, the junior consultants might mess up. So the senior manager will check their work. But if the junior assistant, the junior consultant, the junior analysts are AI agents, and we need another AI agent on top of them, something is wrong with the way we are adopting technology. That's number one. Number two, the difference between AI and any other technology that we know is that previous technologies were deterministic. You do A, you ask the technology to do A is going to do A, right? You are, I don't know, using Excel, putting in formulas that will lead to specific results based on the formulas you put in. Very simple. There's no guesswork, right? AI is not deterministic, it's probabilistic. It's trying to predict what is the right answer for a specific context. So I'm sure that Workday did a lot of research and they try to put out the most accurate product out there. But I don't want a probabilistic technology to check compliance because it might end up in fines, lawsuits, etc., right? So I would prefer to not to have agents, to have a deterministic system, an old school SaaS to be in charge of checking the agents rather than having another agent. It's like putting a wolf guarding for the sheep. So yeah, that's what I was thinking about when I saw this. I don't know
Shannon,
if
what
it
do
makes
you think?
Really cool perspective, right? Because, I think as you're saying that, I'm like, oh, you know what? I see this. Workday has like all these big tech companies are having to put AI in front of a customer because then they're like, oh, nobody wants our tech if we don't have AI in it.
Mhm.
So the easiest way is to put another agent in there to take care of the agents so that there's layers because that is really how we're used to working, right? We work in a hierarchy and so we might as well have our agents in a hierarchy,
yeah.
forgetting that the technology, checking the technology doesn't help to necessarily improve
Mhm.
the outcomes. And if you set up the AI the right way in the agent to begin with, you shouldn't have that's where the checks and balances should have happened. And your outputs should be verified so that we know that it's actually getting the right outcomes. And the humans should be able to do that because
Mhm.
that's what humans are good at. So, it's a really interesting perspective. And but as the largest HRIS system, I think in the world now, it'll be interesting to see how many signups they had right away. Cause my guess is people will like, yeah, I
Mhm.
need this. I need this to come in because now I can say all my agents are like compliance ready. They're not doing anything wrong. Their outcomes are going to be great. No hallucinations, which of course none of that is
Mhm.
true because they do hallucinate, although they may be more accurate than humans. So yeah, Bree, what are you thinking?
That's a really interesting lens. I think I had a different perspective just because of I was at a breakfast and it was more just, I think, from what I was hearing. So I was at a CEO breakfast yesterday morning and there was a lot of like industry leaders around the table and we were watching a presentation around, just AI in your company and kind of having conversations around that. But what I was hearing around the table was a lot of fear and worry around AI, around, security and like my data and the risk attached to it. And like, how do I ensure I'm keeping, all these separate computers with different things, or I'm doing this, or I'm whatever. So when I was reading this, I was like, oh, interesting. I wonder if this is going to be like a confidence builder for companies who have been resisting AI adoption to start to feel more comfortable. Because what I've been hearing, from the leadership lens and like from my past corporate life, in the energy space, it's like, especially regulated industries or things like that, they've been slow to really put this in a meaningful way because they're just worried about the risk attached to it and like the data security and all that sort of thing. So I was like, oh, I wonder if something like this is starting to maybe make people feel more comfortable because right now it just feels a little bit of like cowboy world of like just put it in and see what happens, get the ROI, like go. And we're seeing that not work very good. So that was more the lens I was coming, totally different perspective. I'm also not the technical person to start pondering the AI on top of the AI and the compliance. So
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that you took it there because it's not a lens I would have been thinking about. But it's just like I wonder if it's gonna start to make leaders and larger companies who have maybe been a little slower to adopt feel more comfortable, because what I'm seeing from my perspective is a lot of things about people being like, where's the ROI on the AI, where's the ROI? It's like, it's too early. All of you have barely put a toe in to even like understand what the ROI could be. So like calling an ROI on a non-strategy where you just like stood up ChatGPT, now you're complaining about the token cost, like that isn't like real, like, it's not a real thing yet. But how do you get more comfortable was where my head was going with these combos, is like, how do you actually get in? Because we talked a lot around like, people are using it maybe like a bicycle and it can be like one of those like F45 race cars, and they're just like going from a bike into like a a scooter or something. And like, it's like, no, this can go so much further. But to do that, you have to unlock it in deeper ways in your organization. And then the hesitancy around the risk was there. So that's where my head went at. But now you've just entered in another layer of risk of maybe this isn't the right.
But you know what, Bree? Just going back to the last thing that you said about the racing car, etc. I'm not sure that that's the right question, because if you have a really really sharp knife, you're not gonna ask yourself, is it gonna make me prepare a soup faster, right? Because you still need the water to boil for a lot of time after you put the vegetables in. And I think that that's exactly the point, right? We have AI now. It has a huge potential for specific things, not for everything. And let's make peace with that. There are some things that AI is not going to solve in the near future or ever. And
Maybe ever, yeah.
it might be one of them. So trying to search for the opportunity to use AI in every single field and every single industry is exactly like trying to use a very sharp knife to make, I don't know, yogurt or a soup. It's amazing for some other dishes, not
Yeah.
for some.
I love that. So let me share with you my vision of AI. What I would love AI, because I'm a very human focused person. And so for me, I think in organizations I see two opportunity levels. There's optimization, which I think is what like I kind of felt like some of that like make the soup faster or better. Or chop faster. Like I feel like there's optimization as far as how do you just make things better, faster, whatever. I think optimization is where you look at like the layoff perspective because it's like, how do we optimize and get rid of the people? Whereas I love to see, which we are nowhere near yet because we're just trying to figure out this layer. I think there's such an opportunity to where it's like you optimize the shit out of as much as you can with AI and you take those people. You want to see ROI? Do you know what ROI is like? You take those people and you redeploy them in the creative growth space of your company. You're enabling them in a like my dream of AI is new Renaissance era. We all go back to being creatives,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
And that is the role of a human. The role of a human is not to slave away in the field. It is not to type in spreadsheets. It is not, we have reached a place of, I just want to be the Jetsons, okay, you guys? I just like, we have reached a place where the machines can enable our lives so that humans can become back into a place of true humanity and what our secret sauce is, which is invention, creation, art, like writing, like sharing and connecting. Like that's where I want to see it because when everyone's talking about ROI, it's like and as a business, we've seen this in mini cycles for ourselves. When we create more space for ourselves, what do? We spend more time as a team. We communicate better and more. We are less frazzled around the doing and we are more, and some of it, because I'm a creative originally. Like I went to art school. I was going to be a Disney animator was my 10-year-old dream. I was not going to be that working for the man, and I kind of did that for a long time and went down that path. I didn't follow that path. But with that, I think like in that space, like there's this concept, like when you're a creative, you understand this. When you're not a creative, you don't understand that there's a lot of just ruminating and languishing in thoughts to be creative. And that's why you see the tortured writer on the movie, just like walking along the beach in their house coat. You know what I mean? Like you do need to just have that space to genuinely move things forward. And so that's what I am excited about is can we get to a space where output isn't tied to or outcomes are not tied to output where like you can leapfrog yourself that way. Like you look at Da Vinci or any of those guys, they just had people, the people ran their lives for them. They fed them, they did this, and they just like languished in their thoughts. They woke at 2 in the morning and they thought about things and they did math. Like, how do we get to that life? That's the life I want to be in. Look, I'm even wearing like a frilly puffy shirt. I'm just trying to get there.
That's very
Agree.
interesting. And I think that for that we do have an opportunity now. Meaning we can
Mhm.
really get there. I agree with you 100%. By the way, the Jetsons analogy is perfect because who are the robots in the
Yeah,
Great.
Jetsons? The
yeah.
servants,
The
right?
servants.
Meaning they're not managing the family.
Yeah.
So it's
It's a
it's
democratized society. Class systems collapse. And it's like people are just like, oh my God, you're way too going into this. But
Now you're gonna get us canceled because all
I'm
the people who
sorry.
love
I'm
classes
sorry.
systems are like,
I know. I've actually had someone be like, well, what happens to the classes? It's like, No, we don't need classes in this
Yeah,
scenario.
then you're done.
Classes
Everybody's
do not
equal.
need to exist in this scenario, but that does make people uncomfortable, especially if you've really, like, lived your life in the class system
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah,
Which is
yeah.
Or the
probably like
upper
if we
echelon of the class system, I
but
guess.
if you think about it, like closing out this story is probably that Workday did this to make their customers comfortable because this is what they're used to seeing. They're used to having hierarchy. They're used to having one layer look after another layer after another layer. And so that's probably to your earlier point, like we see lots of business leaders who are really nervous
Mhm,
about AI and the risks and stuff. So they put a product out there that doesn't get business leaders to have to think too far outside of what they've grown up with. And like we know we've been in this model for over 100 years now. And they can just add the AI and feel good about it because I have a product that's checking a product.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
And I think it'll
Or
disappear. I think it's
or
just
to
for
get a
right
nice
now.
upsell. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Or to get a nice upsell.
Oh, I'm sure that it has something to do with
But
the
but
bottom
but
line.
yeah, you're right. Let's them on the positive side. You're right.
Okay, let's switch over to our last story, which is along the same kind of vein of AI being adopted, but this was a study from the Blair Foundation. They studied women entrepreneurs, 3,000 of them globally, and they found in 1 year that the AI implementation had gone from 38% to 82%, I think it was. And so that's awesome, right? Good to see, uh, adventurous to get out there. Now, what it doesn't really give a whole bunch of detail on is like where, like what kind of AI, right? Like, are you using it as a, my favorite Google on steroids is like your chat, chat GPT searching, giving you more in-depth answers, or are you like using a like we do at League, like which is behind the is powering the actual tools and giving people a different experience than we've ever been able to give them before. So like there's you get different ROI on different types of uses of AI, and so but they haven't seen the ROI. They haven't necessarily seen the revenue gains, the productivity gains, and that sort of thing. So I thought this was an interesting one because there's kind of goes back and forth on what were people expecting and why. So, Abby, how about you? What did you think about this story?
So first of all, let's just remind ourselves some of it is probably because of structural challenges that we all know. It's female entrepreneurs. That's how the system, unfortunately, is working. They will struggle more than the average male entrepreneur, and that's one of the framings that we should look at and not ignore it.
Mhm,
That's one. I do think that there is a second piece that is makes the issue more acute for everyone, not only for female entrepreneurs. We know that female entrepreneurs can get, an average, can get to a higher ROI faster than male entrepreneurs. The data is in. But this report actually says those female entrepreneurs that used AI for simple tasks, marketing, design, learning, etc., didn't get, didn't see an increase in their ROI. Those that use it for bookkeeping, for strategics, well, meaning when the AI really became part of the startup's infrastructure, they did see
mhm,
an ROI. So what
Mm,
we're here, and I'm sorry if I play with the numbers, but we're basically saying even those entrepreneurs that usually get faster a higher ROI when they use AI, if they use it in a shallow way, they fail. If they
mhm,
use it in a smart way, they're gonna get much higher and faster gains.
mhm.
So that's just for the whole industry to learn. It's not only for female entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a great point. I think we've seen that ourselves. Like we definitely like we couldn't have done what we've done over the last year without AI, and our return on it has been like
Mhm,
very lucrative.
Mm,
I was talking to a chief technology officer last week, and she told me that they code next to it, they use it for coding, and she says that not only is her team more efficient, but they're and like effective because they are smaller,
mhm,
but is she's shipping 10 times the amount of code that she used to before, and it's better. It's not breaking. It's really so the ROI is great there, But to your
Mhm.
point, somebody putting it into marketing where you still need more creativity. You need things to really appeal to the human and get the human emotion to come out in marketing or people don't buy. And so that piece still takes us, that creative side, that emotional side that the AI does not have emotions.
It just goes back to
Right?
what we were saying before.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like what I took away as well is like some of the things they were talking about. I'm like, well, there's just like there's a lot of women in the marketing space. You know what I mean? Like some of these are more like female vocations. And so
Hmm.
like there's two angles. One, some of these are more female vocations and do they just have outsourced resources that are supporting them on the other things? So like if you are a marketing person, of course you're using it more for marketing content, this, and this. And women do skew more into those industries. So part of it I was like, I wonder how the data is actually like pulled to like kind of assess this and if there's a bit of a bias lens on it as attached to that. I think the other thing I was thinking too is like, coming from corporate or things like that, like a big conversation that was had and that like guidance that I received earlier is like women do not get exposure to P&L, to the business side, to the strong of a degree as men do in their coming up with their career. Men get pulled in earlier, younger, more into those kind of like business level conversations, then women get the opportunity to. So if you're a female entrepreneur, one, like are you outsourcing some of that? You know what I mean? Because it's not something that you maybe would have had enough exposure to feel confident to take over. So are you like bringing in resources? Do you have someone who does the bookkeeping, the accounting, the whatever, and you're not as managing it and you're doing more of like if you are marketing, are you more focused on the creative side? Just because like we do know that is also a thing. So I think part of my like feminist person is just like, well, yeah, like you're just like you're putting the penalty on the system that's been imposed on women and then saying like in a soft way that somehow women aren't succeeding in it. You know what I mean? In that way. They didn't outright say that, but it kind of had that like lens to it, which kind
Yeah.
of just annoyed me. And it was like, well, there's a lot of reasons from a systemic perspective why this probably is. And I think you brought up a great point, Avi, is just like it's less around women versus men versus, whomever. It's more just around like how are you applying AI? And this is like one small subset of data that you're looking at. But if you expand it, it might be the same data set in theory across the whole thing. You're just like isolating women in the scenario. So it's kind of like, okay.
I I I think you described it very well, and I also think that actually it's great news. Meaning, if you if we are saying entrepreneurs who adopt AI at a deep level in organization in the right way, going back to what we were saying
Hmm.
before, can get a higher ROI, and that's what the report says. That means that it doesn't matter if the founder is a man or a female or how they define themselves. You have highest chances of succeeding. It's actually good news. I doubt that the majority of customers check what is the gender of the founder before
Hmm.
purchasing a product. So it could be actually the survey could hint
Hmm.
to an amazing strategy for female entrepreneurs to go
Yeah.
faster than the competition, male or female.
I like that because it also goes back a little bit to what we were talking about in the sense of like nobody's using AI very deeply yet with the ROI
Right.
conversation. So it's just like, have we just taken something that we know people are largely using it in a right way, and we're just segmenting? We could say people with green hair are not using AI very effectively. It's,
Exactly.
Yeah,
none of us
yeah,
are,
yeah, yeah.
and
Yeah.
so it's like, is that kind of the lens that's being taken? Again, it's just like media spin, the sound bites and the all of that.
I think that's why this story was in Glitch, right? I think it was so flawed from a like, yeah, why did you have this? And sure, like there's lots of studies and research done on different genders and how they, perform
Mhm.
in different scenarios. But it
Yeah.
did make it seem like this group of women,
Yeah.
entrepreneurs who are often have things stacked up against them already, that makes it a difficult playing field that they were not being successful with AI.
I know.
And but to your point, Abby, was the stuff that they are successful with are the same stuff that the other companies that have implemented the AI into those tools and those tasks are also seeing great ROI on it,
I
right?
think the other thing that isn't like this is where I'm like, I'm a feminist stance putting my tinfoil hat on now, because it's just like, to Abby's point, it is proven research that female entrepreneurs and leaders run better companies, get better performance, get better results. Can we stop with these bullshit angles of trying to minimize female executives, female leaders, and female entrepreneurs as less than. Like, what is with this obsession? And it almost feels like it does feel like a conspiracy theory at this point. It's like we have literal stats. Why does no one align to that narrative? Why are we always looking to try to prove it wrong? It's like we will just not accept this truth. It's like, nope. I hate those numbers. I hate that fact. We need to find all the other facts that will disprove that that might be true.
100%. And also, and I'm not saying and instead of saying but, it is an actual and. Are you familiar with Jason Fried? He's the founder and CEO of 37 Signals. They made Basecamp,
Okay.
Hey, and a lot of very
Yeah.
fascinating guy. And one of the things he says is we never wanted to have investors, and we don't have investors, and we've been successful for 20 years in a row, literally growing the revenue for 20 years in a row, because we didn't have to listen to all these people and to their opinions. It also goes back to our first conversation, right? To our first topic about Meta and where the investors are when they have to take the blame. But it also goes back to what you're saying now, Brie, meaning if a founder or a CEO just decides that they're developing a beautiful product, a useful product, and they can bootstrap it. If there is a business model that goes into that can be advanced through bootstrapping rather than investments,
Yeah.
I think even if it takes more time, even if it's more complex, I know it's not easy. It's just much better because they don't have to deal with all the bullshit that you were talking about. They don't have to have all the conversation with investors that will negate their successes because they want to see a man in front of them instead of a woman. So, yeah.
I know. It's on my
It's really
mind
interesting.
constantly, Abby.
I love it. Okay. So I think what a great discussion today.
Yeah,
Right. And there's many themes throughout today. But what we continue to see is that nobody's got this figured out. No leader has got the silver bullet of exactly how AI is impacting the workplace or how what decision is the right one versus another one. I do like the fact that we saw lots of quick pivots in some of our stories today of like learning and trying, learning, change. And that is a very effective way of running a company and your career. Right? It's not necessarily it's not something to be thought of as poorly. And so I thank you guys for that great conversation. Before we leave today though, let's move over to this week's big action, which I'll tell you, it's about affirmation. And so I tried something a couple weeks ago. A simple thing that happens on our cell phones is that you can set up an automation to send yourself a text or anybody else because I send them automated to my team too. But what I started to do was put my affirmation into a text for myself every day so that I read it every single day, and then I put a little heart next to it.
I love that.
And yeah, and it really so that this week's big action is have an affirmation about yourself. Have one line that you ingest every single day. I do mine in the morning. Some people maybe do them before they go to bed. I've also read that that's really good because it sits in your brain over while you're sleeping. But you really think about like, what are you really good at? What was that superpower that you were put on this earth to do? And ingest it so that you live it. Similar to what you said, Abby. This on the first story we talked about is like you have to get so good at knowing what you're convicted, what you want to communicate to your team when you're a leader, so that it just automatically comes out in your authentic speech, and you don't have to stop and think about it. This is that same thing. You live and breathe your affirmations. So I'm curious, do either of you have practices that you do with affirmations, and do you like this kind of a way of keeping yourself very focused and growing all the time? Abby, what about you?
Yeah, go for it.
I thought you were. Thanks. Uh, I agree. I with you 100%, both on a scientific perspective, meaning it is helpful, especially if affirmations are accurate and are not slogans.
Right.
I pray. I pray 3 times
I
a
love
day,
that.
Mm-hmm.
and part of the prayer is not, you know, a script. It's just the things that are important to me, and not only please let it go in the right way, but just articulating the things that I want to keep in mind and that I am acting for. And I think that that's just a variation of affirmations. Works for me, meaning I'm not saying this in a magic way. It on a personal level, it really helps me remember what is the North Star during the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, really resonates.
And I love that, like that, just that routine, right? Like Brie had mentioned that she's found, like we found so many times, people are so disconnected to
Mhm.
themselves,
Yeah.
and they've lost that real connection. And doing a daily routine, whether it's prayer or me sending myself a text so I remember to say my affirmations about myself, develops that routine, brings it forward, and really reminds me why I'm here every day.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Bree, how about you?
And,
What do you think
I've
about
got
affirmation?
I've got 3 different ones that I feel like I routinely put in my life. One is, like, I've got, a couple of pictures behind my desk, but they're covered in Post-it notes because I just put them there, and they're stuck there right above my computer, and then I can look up and I can see them, so it's like a constant always on. The other thing that I did, which I didn't realize was an affirmation when I did it, but now I realize it is I have actually made my passwords, like, my intent or affirmation. So every time I type it in, it's it, and so then
It's
it's
like,
like
I am amazing.
yeah,
I'm a
like, it's
perfect
like you're like,
CEO.
"Mm, I'm not
Now
gonna
I know
tell
all
you
your
what
passwords.
and that's not what it is." But, like, what my I have chosen some, and those are the ones, so, like, it is I found it such a good reminder, especially if, like, some of your affirmations or some of your things or your goals or like, intents are like about career or work, like having a hard day and you're just like, "Mother," and you go and you type it in, you're just like, "Yeah, that's right. Never mind. That's right." And then you like can move. And so like I actually love it. And then I guess
Great idea.
my third one's, like, just more of a pump up jam, I feel like. It's, like, whenever I need to really, like I don't know, for me, I get, like, very amped off of, like, more probably, like, sports, like, kinda I'm not sporty, but for some reason, this, like, hardcore, like, amping, like, does it for me to get me, like, really built up, and so, for me, if I need to feel really confident, really built up, like, I will literally just, like, go into the bathroom, in the mirror, and just be like, "You are a badass bitch, and you are gonna get this done, and you get out there, lady, and you go do it." And then I'll go in my car, and I'll put on some sort of, like, crazy metal song or something and just, like,
Metal
go.
music does it, that's for sure.
That's amazing. I love that.
I love the password one.
Yeah,
What a
it was
great
unintentional,
idea.
but it has now become and I've realized it's my affirmation, and the amount of times where I am maybe having, like, a hard moment, and I have to relog into my computer, and it's, like, such a good brain reset to be like, "That's right. That is right. You get back on that bandwagon. You go."
You know, Brie, there is a hacker somewhere that now is trying obsessively to enter
You know what?
your
It's
bank account, and
my
he's right.
brain's a scary place. They're never gonna guess it. It'll be fine.
I'm amazing. I'm beautiful. I'm talented, etc., etc. They're gonna
Not what
fail
it is at
because I
all.
know that you're more sophisticated than that. But their ego, they're so happy about themselves right now.
So what I've heard on our show today is on this episode, we've invited Mark Zuckerberg to listen to our podcast and all the hackers in the world.
Please don't. Please don't. I mean, you won't guess it. And also, I think the other thing too with passwords, like never make it just words, everyone. Like it's never
Of
just
course.
letters. Replace symbols, other things with the letters. Only you know how to spell these words. So like don't just start making I am pretty your password. That's pretty hackable.
Man. Okay, if nothing else, we had fun on this podcast. I think what was great about what you guys just said is we gave 3 examples of ways to make affirmations part of your day. And that is like that really is self-care because it's about you, only owned by you, privately to you. And I think that's wonderful for the society that we live in today is when you walk around the world just knowing what your superpower is and believing in it, then you make a better impact on the world every day. So that's awesome. Abby, thank you so much for
So
joining
much.
us. It
I
has been a
loved this combo.
pleasure having you with
Thank
us.
you. I loved having the conversation with you. Really liked it. Yeah, thanks a lot for
Yeah.
having me.
Awesome.
Great. All right. Well, everybody have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, listeners, for staying with us. This was our longest episode yet.
I know all of our guest ones keep getting longer and longer. We're just so into it.
It's great. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Everybody.
Bye.